Good morning and welcome to the 5 a.m. Master Scrum Show. Hope you're doing well today. A little bit later, had to cover a daily scrum for a team. But I want to tell a story about watermelon reporting and things I posted up on there. I'll kind of go over this a little bit. Be careful about checking off and just blindly checking off reports because you can create a level of mistrust with you and your customer, other teams, and they won't believe you when you say things are good. They'll think, oh, we got to double, triple check everything. So we're going to go in that today. And that's a story from my wife asking me to go take her car into the dealership. Little did the dealership know that, yeah, I was a test engineer for a while, did a lot of testing, wrote lots of reports. So I kind of look at what's going on. Anyway, we'll talk about that today and just make sure you do it right on this Metric Monday. So this 5 a.m. Master Scrum Show. I am Greg Messer, Scrum Master and Agile Coach. And here we talk about Scrum and Agile in a very practical and tactical way. So you're going to bring more value to your customer and have a little fun along the way. I got a weird reflection of I got new glasses last week. And they came in. I'm getting a weird reflection from the lights. Anyway, hope you're doing well today. And so story. Weiss, I'm out doing work on my parents' house. Why my kids? We talked about that last week. You saw the videos of me outside doing his baseball camp. And my wife asked me, says, do me a favor, can you take my car into the dealership to get it, do its checks or whatever? I was like, sure. Well, I asked her, said, well, should we get it checked for like the air conditioning? Because the air conditioning would stop working when you turned it to 4. She's like, yeah. And I also wanted to get the diagnostics checked out because I thought there was some little slip in the differential and something. So I asked the person, the manager who was there, I said, can we do a diagnostics too while you have it? And can you have someone check the air conditioning unit while it's there? The guy's like, well, no, we don't have time to do that today. We just have these set things set up to do. One tells me they don't know what they're talking about, probably for that to be there because, okay, fine. So I'm like, I was in a grumpy mood then, right? He's like, you can't check it. And I even showed the person how the air conditioning unit, and I actually have a video, which I'm going to email back to, I'll show you why I'm going to do this email, back to the manager of the dealership as far as that goes. Because I demonstrated that the air conditioning unit, when you turn it to 4, and it's hot here, it's actually hot in my office right now. You turn it to 4, it would shut off. Just work with 1, 2, and 3, and then you turn it to 4, and boom, done. And it still does some glitchy thing too, besides it just shutting off, that I was able to video capture. Great. It's my test engineer documentation mentality, right? So went through all that. I'm like, okay, fine. How long is it going to take? 2 hours. Really? 2 hours to do a checks. You're not going to do any diagnostics, no nothing else. Okay, fine. So whenever got lunch and I was hanging out, got a call, says, oh, your brakes are low and they probably need to be recut and redone. And I'm like, okay, how long would that take? Well, I can do, well, I said, I can do that because I said, maybe I'll reschedule for a diagnostics visit so that you have it on your time, but they have time to tell me that they can do the brakes. And this is a long story. Sorry about the long story getting to where we're going. So I'm like, fine. Okay. But I can't do it because I don't have time, but I'll bring it in when I do. And they sounded upset that I didn't want to do the brakes right then and there. I'm like, well, earlier I didn't have any problems. Do a simple diagnostics and read the computer, nor check out my air conditioning unit, but yet you have time to do brakes, which cuts rotors, it's a lot more work is involved, in my opinion, than it is to plug the little computer into the car. So I said, no, I won't do it. So I got my car back. So I got this report back, and this kind of goes into, and I blacked out who the dealership was. So I got this report. You can see it's got a lot of red, yellow, green, and everything in it. And in this report, and I put a little post on there, a couple things. One, what a report's supposed to be. We're going to dig in that a little bit in here and one here, but it's a classic. There's one item. I knew the air conditioner was working. I even showed the person. There's an item. It says here, heating, ventilation, AC system operation, hoses, lines, and leaks. Okay, fine. Interior, it's an interior inspection. They checked off the green that it says it works, checked in okay. I've never heard of where you take an air conditioning unit and don't turn it all the way up to the top, turn on max to make sure it works. It cools the air condition. I grew up that you always turned it up. So there's a check there. So now I'm kind of doubting the whole report. Did you do everything on here? Because it's clear when I saw and demonstrated that it was not working when you hit 4, right? So now I'm doubting this whole report. It's a big freaking watermelon. So they're all checked green. There is no red marks or yellow marks anywhere on this chart. None. Everything's either green or nothing, right? And I really can't believe they didn't check the fluid level in the car. You think they would just do that? Dealerships used to do that all the time, just instantly check all the fluids. And if they needed something, they would top it off. They didn't care because they wanted you to come back. They make so much money on this. And by the way, this cost me $300. Anyway, so they did this. And then the brake pads, they didn't even mark yellow, like needed to be changed. When you do reports like this, not only because this is like useless information, right? We already, everything's checked off green, which tells you it's useless. But when you do a report and you're going to give it to someone, you should include recommendations. So they can have follow-up sales, right? Hey, know the air conditioning unit. Hey, we'll schedule. We're gonna future action. Schedule appointment to do a diagnostics on it and make sure why it's going on. Maybe it's a blown fuse. I was looking on the internet. There's not much information on, but maybe a blown fuse. And then the brakes. Hey, recommend when you come in next, do a rotor replacement and all that kind of stuff. There are no recommendations on here. There's no check marks. They skipped the rotor pads, but they said the caliper condition, the radial condition was good. So, but they told me I needed to cut new rotors and all that stuff, but yet the rotor condition was good. How does that work? So there's two faults on here. Air condition, I know totally wasn't working. And the rotor, which they called me and told me they want to replace, but yet on this form, it's not there. Be careful. I love those PMP people or project managers or data people. Oh, we'll fill out the forms. We'll check it off. Or people that report. I remember I said this all the time. I still remember doing a safe report, and we had all these teams, and we had like 450 people. It was a big room. I had one team over here, and I'm like coaching this. I didn't coach that team. I coached other teams in the room, and I'm in there, and the one team says, well, we're green. Everything's green. Product owners, we're green. Everything's green. We talked to everyone. And this other team all the way on the other side of the room is like, we see your name on there, but we haven't talked to you yet. So how can the product owner say everything was green, but yet didn't talk one of their connections that they have a dependency on and discuss the dependency? You can't. It doesn't happen. How can they mark everything green? It's called a watermelon report. Everything's green and, heating in an AC unit. Interior inspection. Titled, you would assume that means they were in the interior. That means they weren't even in the engine compartment, right? Because there's other things that could have been anywhere, but you would turn it on. And then there's no notes. So there's no instruction. Now check this. Now, I'm not going to read this to you because it has some of the things and it has person's email. I need the email because I got to email the service manager about this report. I heard something about the system went down or whatever. So then maybe they had pre-printed stuff. They couldn't handwrite on it, the notes or anything in the thing, or print out the notes that said this is recommended things to be done. There's no recommendation here. And the dealership had the gall to print out a canned report. Dear valued customer, thank you for trusting us with your service of your vehicle. It's our goal to be the first and most trusted source for your automotive needs. So when you give me a report that's false, checking off stuff that we all know is not there, but you're telling me you want to be the most trusted source. We strive to be 10 out of 10 and would like to ensure everything is handled properly and that we exceed your expectations. They didn't even hit my minimal expectations, let exceed. We are all humans. So they said all that, right? And then they're going to do this. We are all humans and sometimes make mistakes. For some reason, you did not recommend us 10 out of 10. Please call or email me to see what I can do to make this right. So the report's wrong. They couldn't do the things I want, and they have the gall to attach this letter to the report. They're like, what a way to dig a hole, right? So be careful with these metrics that you have. Be careful putting reports out there that says, what do we do? Like everything's good. Everything's like green, right? The watermelon report. All the green ones are checked off. And the ones they even told me that they needed to fix weren't even checked off as yellow. They couldn't even admit that that was yellow. And they couldn't put, and this is the beauty about these metrics. Metrics are absolutely useless if everything's green. If everything's green all the time, why are you tracking the metrics? Everything's perfect. Don't need it. You only need to show it when things are bad, right? But if you want to say, we did all this work and everything's green, you're bragging. And you're just subject for failure. So be careful in these metrics, right? Be careful of these reports. Everything's green. Look at all the stuff we did. And I know 2 of them are not green, but they checked them off as green anyhow. Because they told me, one, what they told me. 2, I asked for the other thing, which I demonstrated wasn't working. So be careful in checking off all those metrics. Be careful putting those template reports and papers on stuff, right? Think about what you're doing, right? Don't just blindly do stuff. And this is where young project managers, young scrum masters, young product owners, young managers, I'd say young and experienced, often just say what they say to get through it. And in fact, you're digging a bigger hole for you in the future than you think, right? Same thing with teams. Let's just get those. Let's check them all. We did all this stuff. Did you really check it off? Did you really do it? Did you double check? Be careful what you put these reports out, because I could put this up on the internet. I'd probably get hit with a major lawsuit, but that is ridiculous, right? It's like, oh, on 10 out of 10. Oh, we know we're all human, make mistakes. No, you totally botched the report, totally misled. You didn't even give me a recommendation. And that's the other thing I want to put in the metrics for this Metric Monday. Not only should you give a metric, I highly recommend you give a resolution, recommendation, or solution. We're going to do this to fix this metric, or here's our plan. Even if you don't know, but here's our plan to diagnose the problem. Write that down. Put that in the report. Put that in your findings. Because if you just put the metrics all green, but there is something really bad, or there is something yellow, include your recommendation. Because what happens is managers just want to approve your recommendations, what you plan to do. Some managers don't want to have any issues at all. But problem is, if you do have issues and you don't let your manager know, and the manager gets called on it later on, that manager is going to be pissed. And they ain't going to be very happy, right? So you're better off getting yelled at for identifying something handed to the manager than allowing the manager to get short-footed. And I've seen that a few times. What do you mean? You didn't tell the manager that you were doing this upgrade. You didn't tell the manager, so that at least they knew it was happening. There was a possibility for an error, even though how small it is. You got to let them know, right? So anyway, I wanted to share that with you from a Metric Monday perspective. This was last week. A lot I didn't do. I think I did a show that day, and I might have even talked about it. And I said I was going to talk about it today. But yeah, the report. Be careful what you put in the report. Be careful of creating watermelon reports that can later on come back to haunt you and actually build a level of distrust. I love the letter. Most trusted source for your automotive needs. What do you think? Should it be most trusted? I don't know. Anyway, they're going to hate me. I'm not going to make a big stink. I'm going to point out the facts. This is your report. This is what you did. And I'm going to ask them as a coach, should you be the most trusted dealer, right? What would you do? Would you trust yourself? If that's what your people are telling your customers, would you trust them? Question. I don't know. Anyway, it's 5 a.m. Master Scrum Show. Be careful in those metrics. Be careful putting those watermelon reports. Read what you put before you give it to your customers. Make sure it's relevant. And don't say everything's green when the screen is blank, right? Oh, the system's up. This customer's seeing nothing. Seen that a number of times. Anyway, I want to wish you the best. Happy scrumming. It's gonna be a short week. We got the 4th of July week coming up here. Probably gonna do some things related to that. Didn't do any fun things on Friday just because it was it's been a crazy month. June was nuts for me. Anyway, wish you the best. Have a great day and take care. Bye, everyone. See ya.